This is a demonstration on how to translate a large number of pre-translated XLIFF files by using Beebox and Wordbee. So just to sort of set the stage and the use case here, for this project we're translating a help system that was created in Madcap Flare, and a large number of XLIFF files were created using Madcap Lingo. So the trick is with a project like that, whether it's a help system or a website, you might be dealing with large numbers of files, and in this case it's almost 600 files. So that becomes a little bit cumbersome or a little bit difficult to do translation as well as to do QA efforts. So Beebox is a great tool to take that project and limit the number of files. In other words, we can go from 591 files to about 10 files or 12 files. So that just makes things a little bit easier to work with. Another great opportunity by using Beebox is that you can link directly to a translation management system. So if we were to create a new project, we would just choose New Project. For this example, I've already created a project so I could set up all the links, and we'll go over how that's done. So when you choose New Project, basically what you'll get is you get the choice to choose the languages and just create this empty shell of a project. Again, for our example, we're going to go ahead and use one that I've already created. By the way, that language definition is very important if you're dealing with XLIFF files, because XLIFF files are language dependent. So for this example, we used English US and French France. Now, what Beebox does is it creates a shell of a project on a local directory. So in this case, what it's done is, you'll see here I have a series of projects. What you can do is just look at the ID. So this is D0F3. So we'll just go ahead and look for that directory, which is right here. And the two most important folders here are in and out. So in is where you will drop all your source files. So as you can see, I've got a series of folders, and in those folders you'll see a series of XLIFF files. So again, now we want to take those 591 files and create something smaller. So once we add the folders to the directory, we can say process new or changed files, and that's when Beebox will recognize all the files, recognize the segments and the number of words. And by the way, if you're dealing with a project with multiple file types, which is completely normal, you can do that. You could work with 300 Word files, and 300 Word files, 10 Excel files, 2 PowerPoints. You could have a mixture of files. That's not a problem. And you'll get information on those file types here in this tab. This is where you'll also see all the languages. You can see basically the dates that are involved with the files, and this is also a really great option. This unique text tab will tell you how many words you have with unique text not counted in the word count. So this is great. In other words, this gives you the repetition values. Now let's go ahead and go over to the translation tab. This is where we're going to create the jobs. So in other words, I've already created 2 jobs, and what's great is I've set up a link to our instance of Wordbee, and that can be done here on the Translation Vendor tab. And by simply entering a vendor key, you can get an active link to a live translation management system. So in this case, again, we're using Wordbee, and you can see that I have my project built, and I already have 2 jobs that have automatically flowed to the job in the translation management system. So what we'll do is go ahead and create a new one, and what's important here is that you can actually filter the results. So again, these are pre-translated XLIFF files that I have because this is an update. So something to note is if you wanted to consider the pre-translated text approved, you could do that. You could approve the content and then say only give me the new materials. For this example, we're going to go ahead and export everything. What you can do from this screen as well is you can choose the number of segments you want in each file. So if I like 1,000, I think that's a good number, but you can go as many as 5,000. So we'll stick with 1,000 at this point. We'll say next, and this is where you get the choice. So because I've set up this direct link to our translation management system, it will automatically flow the files to the translation management system. Once you have that link, what's great about that is you, once the files are completed here, once they've gone through the workflow of translation and revision and editing, it will automatically update the project here. So as you can see, this is a great environment for a translation services company like ours, but even better for a client, because a client could set up their own jobs, directly link to a vendor, and once the vendor's done with the translation, it automatically updates the job on their side. This is why this is such a powerful tool for content management systems, because you can really set up a link that goes web to translation vendor right back to your website. The other way you can work is offline. And if you work in the offline mode, instead what you're doing there is you're just creating XLIFF files. So in other words, we're not flowing directly to a translation management system, but instead we're creating intermediary XLIFF files that you can export, then work on in any other system, and then when you're done you can import them. Again, the advantage being though that instead of having 591 files to work with, you'll have a smaller number. So for this example, we're going to go ahead and choose direct link. I'm going to say create job, and what it'll do is it'll create another file with about 1,000 segments. Great, so we've done that, and if we refresh the screen here, you'll actually see that the file came over. One second. I actually have to accept the quotation. So we'll go ahead and accept the quotation. I could have chosen to accept that automatically. Now what's interesting about this in Beebox actually is if you have price information loaded into your translation management system, so a tool like Beebox, you can actually place costs in here, and what it would do is it would return a cost to the client, and then the client can determine whether they'd like to accept that or not. Now, it's interesting to note that Beebox is very, very flexible. You know, there is you can basically do API calls. In other words, I'm doing this all manually, but this can all be done automatically as well. So that's kind of a neat concept that you can set up a link between a client and a vendor, so all of this is done automatically. So now if we go back to this folder, we should see job number 6, which we just created. Again, just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like in the translation management system, we'll go ahead and look at the segments. And once Wordbee opens the file, you should see the source file as well as the translations that have already been committed from Lingo. All right, so great. So now that we've shown you how the system works in terms of flowing the jobs, we've shown you how the cost works. What we'll do is just walk you through, we'll create one that's not a direct link. We'll create an offline file so you can see what that looks like. So we'll create an offline file, and this is the screen you would get. And the options you have, you can edit translation, so of course you can go ahead and look at the translation, which we'll do in a moment. And you can export the XLIFF, and when the translation's done, you just import it back. So this is really a manual process. When you go to the Edit Translation screen, you get just a quick view of what's already in the file. You can do searches on the source, you can do searches on the translation, you can use wildcards to do the search. I really like this function as well. You can approve all the translations. You can unapprove, so if you want to take that back. You can also make some changes. You could lock translation, which is a neat little function, whereas then, you know, in the translation management system, you wouldn't be able to modify those. So just some really neat tools. And again, going back to the dashboard of the project, you can check progress. So what you see is now you'll see that there's 36% of the words are actually in progress or included in a job. And once we go through the whole process of creating jobs on all of the segments, you would see this ring in its entirety. And as translations are happening, so in the automatic way, if we're creating the translations here and finalizing them, you'll start to see this change showing that translation's actually been completed. When you do it the manual way, you actually have to import those XLIFF files. And of course, once the project is complete, you can create your final deliverables by just choosing Create Deliverables, and then the project is complete. So I hope this demo was able to show you a quicker way of dealing with large collection of XLIFF files. Thank you very much.